One morning in a small seaside town, as the sky began to brighten while the streets were still quiet, a girl sat quietly by the window of her second-floor bedroom. The long-haired girl was named Kaoru Amane. Every morning, Kaoru gazed out the window, not to welcome the beauty of the morning, but to wait for a boy in a school uniform who passed by the road in front of her house every day. He always carried a surfboard, rode a scooter, and briefly stopped at the bus stop across from Kaoru's house. The boy who had long captured her attention was Koji Fujishiro. All this time, Kaoru could only watch him from afar, at the same time and place every day, never daring to greet him, introduce herself, or even talk to him. When Koji finally left, Kaoru closed her curtains and prepared to sleep. Soon after, the sun fully rose. The townspeople began their daily activities, the modern market filled with people, while others enjoyed surfing in the sea. The day went on until the sun set again and the town slowly grew quiet. Unlike everyone else, 16-year-old Kaoru only woke up at night. Since childhood, she had been accustomed to sleeping during the day because she suffered from xeroderma pigmentosum, a rare disease that prevents her from being exposed to sunlight, as it can cause severe skin inflammation and threaten her life. Kaoru was an only child who lived with her parents, the owners of a small restaurant named after her. Her mother worked as a waitress, while her father was the chef. That night, Kaoru planned to go out. Her mother reminded her to return home before sunrise. After dinner, Kaoru headed to her favorite place, an area near the railway tracks, where she usually spent the night singing while playing her guitar. As dawn approached, Kaoru returned home and once again sat by her bedroom window to watch Koji as usual, before finally falling asleep. Not long after, Kaoru's best friend, Misaki, who was the same age as her, came to visit. Misaki often skipped school and made Kaoru's house her favorite place because it was quiet during the day and always full of food in the refrigerator. When night fell, Kaoru returned to her usual hangout to play the guitar, this time accompanied by Misaki. In the middle of her singing, Kaoru suddenly fell silent. Her gaze locked onto Koji, who happened to pass by in front of her. Misaki asked if Kaoru knew him, but instead of answering, Kaoru handed her the guitar and ran after Koji. After briefly losing sight of him among the rows of shops, Kaoru finally saw Koji about to cross the railway tracks. Realizing this was a rare moment and unable to hold back her feelings any longer, Kaoru gathered her courage and introduced herself in an awkward, almost startling way, explaining her condition and her hobby. Koji was left stunned by her behavior. Before Kaoru could even learn his name, Misaki arrived and pulled her away. Misaki scolded Kaoru, saying that her approach could easily lead to rejection. It made sense, as Kaoru had rarely interacted with any boys other than her father and spent most of her time at home. The next morning, Kaoru once again watched the boy she liked from her usual spot, accompanied by Misaki. Suddenly, Misaki realized that his face looked familiar. It turned out that Koji was actually her schoolmate. Since Misaki rarely attended school, she didn't even know his name. Misaki then went to school to find out Koji's identity, documenting it with her handycam. That was when she discovered that his name was Koji Fujishiro, a student who often fell asleep in class but was well liked by his classmates. Meanwhile, Kaoru's mother visited a hospital to consult a dermatologist about Kaoru's illness and possible treatments, but the result remained the same. There was still no cure for XP. That night, Kaoru couldn't take her eyes off the video recording of Koji on Misaki's handycam. From that moment, inspiration for a song was born. She took out her guitar and began searching for melodies that matched her feelings. The song was later titled "Goodbye Days," telling the story of her love for Koji, about hope, limitations, and the illness that stood as a barrier between them. Before the song was finished, the person who inspired it suddenly appeared. Koji stopped his scooter in front of Kaoru. They stood there in silence for a moment, exchanging glances, until Kaoru shyly greeted him first. For the first time they talked, though it was only simple small talk. Kaoru admitted that she had often watched Koji from her bedroom window and that she usually sang near the railway tracks, where they had first met. Suddenly, the alarm on Kaoru's watch rang, a sign that she had to go home before sunrise. Before parting, Koji promised that he would come back to that place to listen to her sing again. The next day, coinciding with the school semester break, Koji met Kaoru at their agreed location. However, the spot had already been taken by other street performers. In the end, Koji invited Kaoru to go somewhere more lively in the city center. For the first time, Kaoru rode on a motorcycle, struggled to fasten her helmet strap, and experienced a sense of freedom she had never felt before. That night, Kaoru looked genuinely happy. Koji then invited Kaoru to an open area in a shopping district. There, Kaoru began to sing while playing her acoustic guitar. Her gentle, beautiful voice immediately drew people's attention. At first, she sang while standing, then sat down, but not a single person left. Instead, the crowd continued to grow larger. Koji, standing at the very front, felt that there was something truly special about Kaoru. Not only because of her voice, but also because of the natural, sincere inner beauty that radiated from her. After leaving the place, Kaoru felt a happiness she had never experienced before. Along the way, she held Koji tightly. They later stopped by the beach, where Koji told Kaoru that he believed she would one day become a star because of her talent and inner beauty. In contrast, Koji saw himself as useless. Kaoru, however, encouraged him and lifted his spirits. Soon after, Koji confessed his feelings and asked Kaoru to be his girlfriend, awkwardly and honestly, much like the way Kaoru had once done. Having loved him for so long, Kaoru accepted. Koji then suggested that they stay together to watch the sunrise. At that moment, Kaoru realized she had gone past her safe limit. She had been so caught up in happiness that she failed to notice the alarm on her watch. Panicking, she ran toward her house. But after only a few steps, the sun began to rise, putting her life in danger. Koji, unaware of Kaoru's illness, chased after her and tried to give her a ride home. Once they arrived, Kaoru thought of nothing but escaping the sunlight. She managed to get inside, though a small amount of sunlight still touched her skin. Confused, Koji returned to bring back Kaoru's forgotten guitar. Outside the house, he met Misaki and Kaoru's parents, who had been searching for her since dawn. From Misaki, Koji finally learned about Kaoru's illness, one that could take her life if she was exposed to sunlight. Soon after, Kaoru was rushed to the hospital for examination. Her parents were relieved when the doctors said that the sunlight exposure had only caused mild inflammation on her hand. She was allowed to return home. On the way back, Kaoru's father asked who the man was who had brought her home that morning, and whether he was her boyfriend. Kaoru replied that the relationship was already over, before it had even truly begun. She believed her illness made it impossible for her to be with someone who had a normal life and a long future ahead. She felt as if she had no hope of living much longer. Her father tried to comfort her, saying that she would recover. But Kaoru challenged him to look into her eyes if he truly believed that. Unable to do so, her father turned his face away. From that moment on, Kaoru decided not to leave the house and refused to see Koji again. Missing Kaoru's singing, Koji went to her house. However, Kaoru told him to leave, saying she was not a normal girl and had no future, especially not as a singer. She shut him out completely. Days later, Koji researched Kaoru's illness. After learning that her life expectancy was extremely limited, he decided to do something to reignite her will to live. Without telling anyone, Koji visited Kaoru's house again before dinner. Kaoru tried to avoid him, but eventually returned to the table. The atmosphere grew tense and silent. Kaoru then asked why he was still coming to see her. Koji handed her a recording studio brochure. He said he wanted to preserve Kaoru's voice on a CD. Since singing was the only thing Kaoru had always loved, she couldn't refuse. Kaoru's father offered financial help, but Koji declined. He chose to take full responsibility. To make it happen, Koji sold his belongings and worked part-time cleaning boats at the harbor. He had to work for 10 days to gather enough money for the recording. Meanwhile, Kaoru practiced tirelessly to prepare her songs. One day, while practicing in her room with Misaki, the fingers on her left hand suddenly stiffened, making it hard to press the guitar strings. Thinking she was just tired, she took a break. But when she tried again, her fingers completely stopped working. Kaoru broke down in tears. She was rushed back to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed that her brain was beginning to shrink, which would soon cause paralysis and eventually lead to death. Hearing this, Kaoru's father left the room in tears, devastated by the reality that his only daughter had little time left. The next night, Koji visited Kaoru, who lay weak in her bed. They talked about the place where Kaoru used to watch Koji every morning, and about the first time she fell in love with his clumsiness. As Koji prepared to leave, Kaoru called out to him and said that even though her hands were now paralyzed and she could no longer play the guitar, she still had the will to sing. She also said she had prepared a song for Koji to record. Koji smiled, hiding his sadness. After leaving, he could no longer hold back his tears, imagining the painful fate Kaoru carried behind her brave smile. The long-awaited day arrived. Kaoru was taken to a recording studio. Before recording, she asked everyone to wait outside so she wouldn't feel nervous. Inside the studio, Kaoru began recording her song. Outside, Koji explained that he had done all of this because Kaoru's voice carried a calming beauty that could touch anyone who heard it. Time passed. One afternoon at the beach, Kaoru was seen sitting in a wheelchair, wearing a UV protective jacket, accompanied by her parents. She watched Koji surfing in the distance. Kaoru told her father that she would continue fighting her illness with all her strength so she could live beside the people she loved. But fate had other plans. The beautiful sunlight that afternoon became the first and last sunlight Kaoru ever saw. Shortly after, she passed away. Her funeral was filled with sunflowers, symbols of her enduring spirit. The film ends with Koji's wish coming true. Kaoru's song is played on the radio and heard by countless people. The beautiful voice of a singer who has passed away now lives on forever. Koji returns to his daily life, carrying memories and a love that will never fade.